Welcome to my event. I'm basically going to be talking about AI filmmaking and how I've basically got involved. A lot of it just came through naturally, really. Just kind of listening, watching stuff on social media, and it just kind of just allowed me to get involved. How I started is I was doing the visual effects MA course here, and I started using Midjourney. I don't know if you guys have used Midjourney. Okay, Midjourney's it's it's online, and you get basically a certain amount of credits, and then you can just kind of tap in what you want in terms of images. And this kind of gave me an opportunity for me to just kind of go a bit wild. So I imagined doing Star Wars, but in a kind of a Second World War style. So I could imagine kind of stormtroopers walking around. And I kind of imagined the whole kind of the first Star Wars. I think it's at The Last Hope, I'm not sure, but all done in the style of a Second World War movie. But yeah, that was just the idea. And then the other idea I thought about was doing a Dracula kind of concept, because I knew it was kind of public domain. And I thought about how about doing a Dracula story, but set during the East Indian Company. But these were just ideas, and I just kind of generated images. So it's a really good way of basically starting to get into creating generative images. To start using Midjourney, but me being slightly tight, I realised, I don't really want to pay. Is there a open source option? So I ended up using a software called ComfyUI, and was it Andrew that did the Le Jeté? Adrian, sorry. And he did his version, and I also had the idea of doing Le Jeté, but I wanted to do it in a Sid Mead style, which is a kind of like a futurist industrial designer, and he did a lot of films like Blade Runner, Aliens, and I thought, I could do it in that style, but then I realised that, yet again, I was just copying other people's work. So what I ended up doing was I tried doing some early experiments with AI, and this first one is called Ariman's Veil, which I kind of looked up public domain, and you could use this kind of character. And the idea was to get around about 6 to 8 images and see if I can tell a story. I generated loads from that, and then from that I just kind of I suppose I just put them onto Premiere, and I kind of virtually made kind of rushes out of them, and I thought, right, okay, I can just take images that I don't need, and then I just kind of created 8 images, and from the 8 images I thought, I'm going to tell a story. So I'll just play that for you.
Mayday!
This is where the signal is coming from.
Mayday! Mayday!
Oh, God. What is that?
A temple, I think.
Mayday! Mayday! Mayday!
So with the tools I used Midjourney, did a bit of Photoshop, and then at the time 11 Labs came out, and they had this kind of beta version where you can kind of take voices, and really I was looking for English voices, but I couldn't find anything, so I just ended up using American voices, and then I just stitched them together in Premiere, and then I just put the sound together. And I think, I'm not sure the sound design, I think I must have used Stable Audio, I think. I can't remember, but from that was like my very first project. And then the second one, it was kind of doing the same thing, but this time I thought about, well, let's do the same thing. It's getting a load of images, try and tell a story with stills, and then taking the stills into Runway, which we touched upon last time. And they had some kind of free credits, and I thought, I'm going to use it. So I'll just play that for you.
I'm the last one to spread the good word in the monastery. But the smell of the air just takes my breath away. I feel lost and confused. Most of all, I feel lonely. And now I've found solace in these flowers that surround me. I feel devoted to a new cause and have restored my faith. Nothing will stop me now. I finally found a purpose and a place I can call home. My body means nothing to me. As long as my spirit is alive, I am free.
Okay, so I kind of took it a step further by using Runway, which I don't know, I don't have it there, but I did use Runway. So I started off with Midjourney, and then took it into Runway, and then this time I didn't use Premiere, I ended up using the DaVinci editing software. And then for the sound, I just used Suno and 11 Labs for the voice, so that was quite good. So I wanted to take the next step where you've got the first film I made was just images and then trying to tell the story with, I think it was about 6 images. And then the second one, there was a lot more, but it was just more or less like a monologue. And then for the next film, which was kind of set in, it's meant to be set in Africa, was, can I have 2 characters try and interact with one another? So I'll just play that for you.
Wake up and keen. In keen. It is the spirit forest who has chosen you. You must return with the heartstone. We need Mother Earth to help. If you get lost, listen to the beat of the forest. Now go. Remember, stay on the path.
Okay, so basically, how did I get to my forest story? I started off with ChatGPT, really. I started asking it all sorts of questions. I would say, oh, I want to kind of create a story. And one of the questions that I asked it is that I'm sort of a big Predator fan, 80s movies. And I said, well, can we make a Predator movie that is set during the Roman Empire? Think of Spartacus meets Predator. And it came out with a synopsis, and then I kind of built up a story about a kind of a Predator character who is, like Spartacus, and he kind of ends up fighting in the Colosseum, and how he kind of tries to break down the Roman Empire. There's one problem with that: it was just a massive budget, and it was just very unrealistic. But it gave me an insight into okay, so we can kind of create stories like this, and it made me think about, well, okay, let's stick with the Predator character, and how about if I remember being at university and I was studying African art, and I was looking at the Beni tribes and how some of the kids do scarification, and I thought, well, how about if we stick with the gladiator story, and then we move it on to this kind of story of David Goliath, whereas the boy has to earn his scarification by going into the forest, and in the forest everyone thinks there's this kind of creature and he must defeat it. And I thought, oh, that's quite an interesting idea, and I thought maybe that could work. And then it still kind of dawned on me, and I thought, well, I'm still using existing intellectual property. And I remember I was going to go along with this story, and then I remember speaking to a kind of AI artist, if you want to call him, and he did a kind of short film about Batman. And he put it on I think it was on Instagram, and within a couple of hours it had to come down. And so I had to really think, oh no, I really need to kind of reevaluate everything. And then that's when I just thought, you know what, I just kind of got to build my own story. But, I mucked around with using Kling, Minimax, and, was getting very close to kind of building this kind of story. And I played around with different kind of camera angles, or what I could do with the Predator character. But then it just never happened. And then I thought, well, instead of doing something that is really high concept, how about doing something that fits in realism? Whereas you look at a lot of AI films, are all about cyberpunk, or about kind of these space operas. And I thought, well, how about let's look into neorealism? And in neorealism, you're looking at trying to find real people with real location, non-professional actors, talking about moral struggle, economic hardship, and also just looking at shots and just analysing the shot instead of just going for these really, you'd watch a lot of these AI movies and it was the camera was just like swooping around. How about just really focusing on just a static shot, but like pretend there's an actual camera operator and he's just like holding the camera and just, he's trying to get that shot. So that's when I just thought, okay, I'm going to do something different now, where I'm going to take on these ideas. And then I kind of looked at other influences like Satyajit Ray, really loved the story about kind of this child's struggle. And then Kurosawa's Throne of Blood, where he uses kind of mythic storytelling, but he uses it in weather like fog, rain. And I thought, if I can kind of merge the two, that'd be quite interesting. And that's when I started talking to ChatGPT, and then I just kind of developed this character called uncanny. And I was kind of interested in the idea of ritual myths and storytelling, and talking about how uncanny has to go to this place where he's been told by an elder that he has to go and find this stone, and that becomes initiation. So it's nothing to do with doing scarification, but it's the action of actually going into a forest, a kind of liminal space, this kind of transition, and then kind of coming back as a changed person. Why Africa? Well, I think, you kind of look at a lot of Game of Thrones and a lot of the landscape. It's always kind of European, and I kind of wanted to do something quite different, where I thought, oh, let's go for something quite ancient. But also I just thought, well, I can't actually travel there because it's very expensive. So how about if I just generated all the images, all the forestry in AI, and then I can just do visual effects into it. And I kind of took on this idea about visual effects is traditionally like to materialize things that you can physically capture. But I wanted to expand that idea, and I thought, well, let's fuse it with generative AI. Things that we can't do, we end up doing VFX. So I thought, okay, let's just do that. And then this was kind of born. And then I was really interested in the idea of the forest being alive, stones have memory, and instead of like monsters attacking you, how about a monster that is like a spirit, a guide? So I thought I took on that idea about a stone, and then I used this idea about the MacGuffin idea, which is kind of developed by Hitchcock, where it's an object that drives a plot forward, but it doesn't actually, there's no detail to the actual story, but it just helps to drive the story forward. And I thought, well, it's about this boy who's trying to find this rock, and through the rock he meets the guardian, and the guardian has to, it's almost like it gives him a question. And then it's the idea of looking at locations. So it was about a sacred space, which is a village where it's something that feels safe, belief, and then going into that liminal space where it was the forest, and then you obviously meet the guardian, the creature. The other reason why I also used black and white is because it was easy in terms of color grading, because you just deal in black and white, and I thought you could just work with blacks and whites. Also, it's kind of a timeless, and it almost feels very dreamlike. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I went for this kind of black and white look. And I was also interested in this kind of felt presence. I'm going back to Predator again. Whereas this is character, Billy Soul, who's actually a tracker.
I was just going to say, do people know Predator? I was talking to a friend that I just prattle about science fiction, and she doesn't watch it. No, I might say about Predator, she's this guy. She just tunes me.
Yeah.
So, do you know?
Does anyone know about Predator?
I do, not very well, but I mean, I put it in there with a lot of the Arnie.
Yeah, it's the classic Arnie movie. Yeah, but actually there's something quite different about this, especially with this character, because he's always kind of sensing there's a kind of like a presence, even though it's there. But I was really fascinated by that, by this kind of felt presence.
So the Predator is this space alien race. They come down hunting for sport, and they do it across the universe.
Yeah, across the universe. Yeah. So, but I just kind of thought about taking that idea of the felt presence, and I thought, I'd be quite interested in using that with the character and Keen, because I think especially with children, they accept anything that's kind of supernatural. The forest is alive. There's something kind of, it's alive, and you're kind of drawn to it. I mean, I'm very fascinated by the paranormal. I don't believe in it, but I'm really interested in when you always ask people about, I experienced a ghost, and I'll say, what happened? Oh, when I was a child, this and that happened. But I'm just very curious about the whole kind of experience, and this kind of knowing that you feel that there's this kind of presence. So how I developed Ankeen is I used a flux model, which, you know, was able to kind of generate a kind of a child. But the problem with the with all models is you'll get an image of a child, but it'll be of a different face. So I ended up using taking an image of a child. Well, it wasn't a child; it was like more of a teenager. And then I used a ComfyUI, and they had this kind of workflow where you can take an image, manipulate it, and then you can create your own kind of character. And then I thought I could that's great, and then I can use that in face swapping. So what I ended up doing is I generate all these still images, and then I took them back into ComfyUI, and then I had this image of this boy, and then I attached it, and it was generating the same kind of face. The problem I had with that is that it was okay with still images, but as soon as I moved into video gen, the faces would mutate, they would change, and yeah, you could see it in the film as well, that the face changes, and so it was just interesting to see. And also with the Predator character, I thought I could kind of move away from this kind of aggressive kind of creature who's, you know, he's just basically hunting for sport, but transferring it and making it more kind of ethereal, kind of more celestial, kind of something quite magical. And that's kind of where it started really changing really for me. So I ended up doing some early sketches. I really didn't really know what I wanted, so I started doing some drawings. I even did some stuff on ComfyUI, and I kind of thought about this kind of jellyfish, which is quite magical, and then I ended up going to 3D ZBrush, and then I started looking at human body parts and trying to blend that in, but it didn't really come together really. And then as I carried on generating, making more images, I came across this kind of thing, which this kind of creature that comes out from the ground, from the sea or from the river, and I thought about, that'd be quite interesting, like something that's kind of forest-based, moss, kind of prickly thorns that are on trees, and then I kind of thought, that'd be a really good idea to kind of use as references, and this is kind of what I finally ended up with. So I basically took an AI image, and then through messing about in 3D and then trying different textures, I ended up building this kind of forest creature. So, and that wouldn't have come to me if I played around with AI. And then what I ended up doing was I took the next step where I used a basic setup in Blender, which Blender is like a 3D software. And then what I could do is take AI images or live action plates, and if it's moving, I could track and then align that to the camera. And then with the creature, I was able to kind of animate and then use the camera, and then basically used all sorts of fog, and then got light shining through, so it kind of made it kind of mystical and magical. And also it was like referencing to kind of Kurosawa's work, especially with Throne of Blood, where it's just all foggy. And this is the basic ComfyUI setup I was using. So I was using I think it's the Flux now. I was using the other one as well, but that was taking longer. So how I was developing that, I was thinking, right, I'll go into ChatGPT. I had a rough idea of a story, so I knew I had a setup, a tension, rising tension, and a release, and then I kind of built a story around that. And then I spoke to ChatGPT, and then we kind of made a kind of list of a shot list together. And then I went into more detail. I thought, well, let's go for the description, let's go for the lenses, let's go for the lighting, and then thought, let's go try and bring in this kind of realistic look with taking in Satyajit Ray's style. And then that was then fed into the ComfyUI. So it was trying to create all the lenses, the kind of style of it, and then I was looking at the contrast ratio, and that's how I ended up generating all the images. And then this is what I ended up doing, is once I got the images, I went into a software like Premiere, or it could be anything that you use, and then I just lined up all the still images, made a kind of a rough assembly, even shots that I necessarily, wasn't going to use, I'd just stick them in there, and then shifting through, I think, right, okay, I don't need this, I need that, I need this, and then I was able to build a kind of a clear story. So this is the process I did. So once they spit out a still image from Flux, then I was able to take it to Kling or Minimax, and then that was able to generate an image. So something like this. And I think they all kind of go about 5 seconds. There's nothing really anything longer than that. And then if I had problems with the upscaling, I'd use a software called Topaz, which I purchased for about $300. And you can use it to enhance the image. And then also with the images that I was happy with, that I just thought I can just leave, that's fine. I just left alone, but all the VFX shots, some of the VFX shots that I just thought needed sorting out, I would work on them separately. So here we've got a VFX shot where we've got this boy, it was a still image, and then I kind of created a clean plate, and then I took, once I created a clean plate, I also generated a video. I took it into After Effects, and then using the roto brush, I was able to kind of create this kind of outline, and where everything else is kind of transparent. And then from there, I was using this add-on that you can use in the 3D Blender software, and it was like a depth batch render, which is basically the white bits is the bits that are more towards the camera, and the faded bits are away from the camera, and it's got a slight flicker, so you could probably take it into DaVinci and just use a deflicker. But what I was able to do then is take it into Blender and then kind of create this kind of 2.5D, which is halfway between a 2D image and a 3D image, and then it actually moves, which was really useful. So you've got the lighting that works with the shadow, works really nicely. The other thing I ended up doing was I couldn't actually find the original image of the still that I did, but to make footprints, I found some image on the internet of some dinosaurs, and then I did two things. I went into Photoshop and I kind of created this an image of the footprint on the floor, and then I went into Kling AI and kind of generated a movie. It kind of didn't work, so I thought it doesn't really matter. I just take the moving footage and take it into After Effects, and then I use this software within After Effects called Mocha they call it, and it just basically does planar tracking, which is just basic surface tracking. And I thought, well, there's no movement, there's no one going in and out, so it's just quite a flat space. So I ended up tracking that, and then through that track, I attached the actual footprint on it, and then I also added smoke on top. The other thing I was also doing was kind of creating volumetric fog. So I was kind of creating this box, adding kind of mist into it, and then I was using lights to shine, and then using the camera to move around the kind of creature. in terms of sound, what I ended up doing was using this voice cloning thing called E2F5TTX. Don't ask me what it is. So I asked a couple of friends of mine if they'd be interested, or if they knew anyone who was of kind of North African descent, and if they'd be able to do some voiceover. But I just couldn't get anyone. So what I ended up doing was finding some voice on the internet. I can't remember where I found it, and I took it into this software, and then I was able to basically write, and it was imitating the voice, and then that's kind of how I got the voiceover. And then for these sound effects, I was using stable audio, which we've already used. So I was generating, and we did a session together.
If you get lost, listen to the beat of the forest. For the lip sync, for this particular shot, I ended up using Stable Diffusion. I was having problems creating images for the elder man on Flux. The skin, it was all kind of looking really plasticky, so I ended up going through Stable Diffusion, and I got more of an interesting result. So from that still, I was able to go into Minimax, and this kind of I kind of told it what I wanted it to do. If you get lost, listen to the beat of the forest.
I took that video generation and took it into Hedra, and with the lip sync, I was able to combine the two, the voice and the images together.
If you get lost, listen to the beat of the forest.
And then that's when I started putting everything together, really. So I replaced all these static stills with moving images, and then at the same time I was also doing the AI sound. And then eventually I gave it to a friend of mine who actually did the music to it, and then he was able to put all the sound design and then actually put all the music to it too. And then I've carried on doing some further tests where I've done some experiments, and it's just I just started playing around, and I think a couple of years ago when we had the kind of
riots where Asian and black people were being attacked, and it just made me think about zombies, and so it was just something that I just wanted to kind of work around with. And she kind of ends up opening up a kind of a curry house, and it just can't. The idea is it calms everyone down, but yeah, I just never really got around to doing it. And then this is something else that I'm working on, another short film, where I was really interested in like Pathé wall films. So I took 2 images, and then I was able to generate this Sikh guy, where he's a kind of a documentary filmmaker. I took it into Kling, and it actually turned out quite good. So the idea is probably taking the images of the actor and then placing them into the bit at the bottom, which I kind of created in, it's all 3D, and then trying to blend AI and 3D together. But I've just done the script, I've never actually finished it off. But then I ended up doing something completely different, where I'm working on something where it's another project called Peeler, and I'm really interested in robotics. But it was things that I was kind of frightened of, especially like companies like Palantir. And I kind of thought about kind of, maybe in the future we might have a robotic police force. I mean, at the top left, you've got they're already starting using robots in Thailand for navigating traffic. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to kind of do a story around that. And I kind of generated something in ChatGPT, and then I took it into Kling. And it just kind of gives you a rough idea of what your kind of character could be. And essentially what I could do now, because I've got it in a kind of a T-pose and it spins all the way around, I could take it into another software where I kind of I can break each into an image sequence, and then I can take and kind of create a LoRa. And then using that, I can take it into ComfyUI, and I can do different kind of camera angles, but it would kind of be quite faithful for that to that design. So I carried on doing some more testing, and then I thought, what it'd be like seeing on the streets of London. But for me, it still didn't it just felt like a policeman, and I kind of wanted something more of a kind of a nightmare situation. So I ended up creating some more AI-generated images where it's almost like this almost like a GIMP kind of thing, but it's a machine GIMP, something that's quite frightening, that I could kind of work with. And then what I ended up doing was AI software called Meshy 3D, and I was able to generate a kind of 3-dimensional image of this kind of Peeler character. But then when you go into and study the geometry, it's so dense, the typology is just so heavy. So what I ended up doing was taking that geometry and taking it into 3D, and then because the typology was heavy, I re-topologized it. So you got the AI mesh, and then what I ended up doing, it's almost like tracing around it, and then you can kind of create this kind of 3D mesh. And then also the hands were there were some artifacts to it, so I was able to clean it up. And then this is like my final design. So it's something that I'm kind of working on, and see how it goes. And I'm done. Thank you. Oh, has anyone got any questions?
And Tito,
Yeah.
The,
I was just thinking of the relevance to police as well as
yeah, thanks, Ro, it's great. And it's really good, the breakdown of how one works, how you work.
Yeah, because I think this is the problem. I feel like sometimes we have people come on, but I feel like they don't really tell us how it's all, how it comes together.
And how complex workflows are. And using, so there's this sort of idea that it's, Adrian mentioned it in his talk, that you just chuck a load of stuff up and hit a button and boom, out comes something.
And I'm basically using 3D, and then what I'd like to do is actually combine it with live action, so you've got 3D, live action, and AI all together. So you could do green screen, bring that in. So I just think I think it's a bit of a misunderstanding that people just think, oh, right, you mean you can do it, but you can tell. Just press the button and then you stitch everything together. But I think if you want to take it the next step further, then, you need to use software like Blender, After Effects, and Photoshop, just to take it to that next step,
So you guys, do you know what Blender is? Is there a tool?
Blender is an open source software, so you could download it. And people use it not only for film or TV, but people use it in the science department, people use it for architecture. But it's great, it's free.
So it's 3D modelling.
Yeah.
And open source.
Yeah.
So another tool. It was interesting talking another free tool. The budget, thinking about doing things on a no budget, micro budget.
Yeah.
And also how to spend credits.
Yeah. I mean, I think for my African story, I think I must have spent about £100, £250. I think that was my budget. And that was mainly generating video images, which, it just takes away your credit. I mean, I tried doing the open source way, and I wasn't quite pleased with the images, and it was just taxing on my GPU, and it was just like, oh, and I was at one point, I was really worried about my computer. I could it's getting so hot.
Yes, it's true that there's in the bigger realm, the understanding, people's understanding would be yes. I mean, with any AI tool, it's really quick and easy, and it's instant gratification. You can get these amazing images, but actually, this process was so complex. I mean, sorry, I missed the beginning, but I just thought, my goodness, the amount of work and navigating all these different pieces of software, all of and even just the organization that you need to have. The planning, the editing, it's incredibly complex. So in a way, it really kind of reassures a lot of people that it's not taking your place.
No.
It's still going to be that mastery, that expert knowledge.
Is very involved.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And how long does it take to build the story, like the African one?
This one took, I think it took me about 4 or 5 months. Because I had to design the creature, and I wasn't sure how I was going to kind of create the creature, so I was tinkering around, but definitely having the AI imagery, it kind of helped me to focus. Oh, okay, so I'm going to go for this kind of forest creature, and from that kind of helped me develop it. About 4 months.
And I like the fact it was born from Predator.
Yeah, something that was a high concept movie.
Very different.
That I'd probably put on the internet and it'll be shut down within a space of a couple of hours. So Disney would just not be happy.
15 minute.
Yeah. So I think it's really good that you could just kind of develop your own kind of characters and the process of using other softwares and bringing them together, and actually still applying filmmaking as well.
Do you use that in your module that you?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I've used. There's a module that in the VFX I was doing camera projection,
So we were doing it in After Effects. So the idea of the camera projection is it's a simple form of a camera obscura, where you've got the camera, you've got the light, and then you've got this texture image, and then you've got this geometry, and it gives the illusion that we're in 3D space. But now you've got something called Zoe Depth, where you can take an image, take it into AI, and it spits out a 3D mesh. You download it, take it into After Effects, and you can add fog. And so I was getting them to do the old school version and then doing the new version. And it was really interesting because still I found the students were quite interested in doing the old school version. It's interesting.
They want to know.
Yeah.
But which surprises me because notoriously, and especially with After Effects, students usually, they used to struggle quite a lot because it's not straightforward.
Yeah.
And so I was interested in finding out what, it's interesting that they actually want to go back to understanding this test because I suppose it makes it easier when you generate. So, and I'm not going to say that it's generated in an easy way, I think it takes time.
Yeah. And also what I found is when you use Zoe Depth, there's still some artifacts.
Yeah.
And then you've got to take it into Blender, you've got to clean it up. And I just think a lot of people thinking, you know what, I'd just do the old school way, which is fine, I think. But I think just blend everything together, and as long as it works and nobody knows, it's fine. And my only problem I had was when I was generating the child, it was the face kept on morphing, and that just has nothing like. So I don't know, it'd be interesting. I'd like to do something where you have a real actor and then have an AI actor, and see how that works. It'd be that kind of interaction. So it's almost like kind of working with green screen, but it'd be interesting to do something like that. Yeah.
Do you read a lot? Where does it all come from? I'm really struck by everything was what you wanted to frighten you. Everything was otherworld.
Yeah, I do read a lot. No, not really, but I don't really read that much. I'd like to read more, but I'm just always constantly working on my, just trying new ideas out. But I think maybe it's just going to film school and just learning how story works, and applying that, and just kind of finding things that are personal to you and applying that to your projects. And then when you think, I'm really interested in this kind of felt presence, and then going and kind of researching that. And I think, I don't know. I'm just more of a person that's locked in his little room and just tapping away on his computer.
I asked that because I read a lot of fantasy fiction, and I think I need to read a lot of fantasy fiction because I've never thought of myself as a creative person to actually generate that. So I read it all the time because I like to have that fuel. I don't do anything with it. I was just kind of, I suppose, projecting the idea that if you're inhaling all the information, this is your output.
Yeah.
What would you advise to someone who just to get started?
Yeah, I would. That's why I showed the early experiments where, kind of tell a simple story, and then just limit yourself to about 6 to 10 images, and then so you are pushing yourself and think, right, okay, and just think in sequences. And
how films like when you did when you went to film school, that whole idea, it's almost like a storyboard.
Yeah. There was a project when I was at film school where it was actually done in black and white, and we shot on a 16mm camera, but it was post-sync sound, so you had to just think in images trying to tell the story. So it's the same kind of concept, and just limit yourself. And it was film, so we were limited with, I think we just had one roll of film, and it was probably about 10 minutes. So it's starting to think like that. Okay, right, limit yourself. Like how, just think you're using film, and just limit yourself to how many shots. And with those shots, you've got to tell a story. And I think it's a good way of doing it.
And using Just that photo Roman style, still image filmmaking, and just put them in PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
And then maybe narrate the story. Yeah.
And I think a static shot is more powerful. I still think it's more powerful than a moving image, because in that shot you've got to look at the composition, you've got to look at the lighting, you've got to look at how it's all put together. I mean, Citizen Kane, if you look at the shots, how they're all designed, most of them are quite static. The only few of them are like moving about, but I mean, a lot of it is like matte paintings that he's added in. But it's just like it's worth just thinking about how a static shot, how much you can put into one static shot and use that to tell a story. And I think that's more powerful than actually just people going around using the camera and moving it about,
And also, I suppose because you give less to your audience, that gives them the freedom as well to sort of create in their minds from that image, because sometimes what I find with some of the, I suppose, the more commercial films, they just give you everything.
Yeah.
And then the music to tell you how to feel.
Everything. They give you everything, and it's kind of really passive, and you don't really engage with it. It's just, it's just like another blockbuster that you're not really interested in.
Yeah, that's true.
With very high
Cut rates and flash.
Extremely, images really sort of
doesn't linger on things.
Yeah.
And there's also, I was still thinking of, say, iMovie, which is I don't know what's called iMovie anymore, but it was like the video editor on the Mac that came free with it, so you could play about. And that had a filter called Ken Burns filter. So he was a documentary filmmaker that did the pan and scan. So he had a plugin named after him, and he did history documentaries about baseball, about all the stuff was photographs, and then it would be a crop to the face, and then it's a rostering camera work essentially using, but everything was a still image, and so you could develop from doing simple slides, maybe, and it could be one shot and a crop of a shot.
Yeah.
So you've got establishing shot, and then you've got.
Because that'd be a good way to introduce that to students, and they've kind of mentioned it. I mean, a lot of them are kind of like, ooh, AI. No.
Really, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the students are used to this kind of really high resolution images and really sharp and really shiny. And so I'm quite surprised that there are anti-AI. I would have thought that that's the kind of
it's really well. It's the editing students that are just like, oh, I'm not sure about this. But I think because they want to focus on editing, and they're just probably worried about their future jobs. But I think it will just morph into something else. I mean, I was looking today, and there was a job out there, and it said VFX plus AI artist. So there's a lot of prompt generators now mixed in with VFX artists. So it's interesting how it's all.
And I guess that's what students need to understand. It's not necessarily, I don't feel that this is about taking people's job, but I feel that they do need to add that to their portfolio and repertoire, and bag of tools.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I did. I mean, one of the lessons I did was they had a live action play, and then what we ended up doing was we went into Adobe Firefly, and then we kind of created matte paintings, and then we tracked them, and then we added them into the plates, and they really actually enjoyed it, and that was the last lesson. They were like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then they realised, the power of, having live action plates mixed in with AI images, you just couldn't be able to tell. It was really quite.
And that's really interesting because the industry spends so much money on these volumes. That nobody's using now because first of all it's too expensive to implement in terms of hardware, and a lot of people wouldn't work. It takes like a massive crew to a lot of people coming together to make a film. And where does that leave that?
It's. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of problems in that kind of department, but I still think people still want to watch independent movies, and they want to go off and, you know, watch some art house movie, and I think there's still a space for it. I think this is just going to turn into something else. So you'll have the popcorn movies, you'll have the art house movies, documentary movies, and then I think this will be just turn into something completely different, I think.
It was nice to approach of not making yet another film that seems it's kind of the cyberpunk.
Yeah.
That sort of,
I think that was the idea. That was when I had my epiphany, and I thought, oh no, let's just go for something complete. Let's just go the other way. Let's go for neo-realism. Look at all the Italian filmmakers, and just go and see if I can take a mythical story and just ground it into reality. And that was essentially my approach. And I thought, let's just go that way.
Well, thank you. I love your term on. You said that you were being a bit mean in terms of what you wanted to spend, but actually, you know, and the employers and the rest of us in the real world would say that everything needs to be, there needs to be restrictions, but we need to be respectful of the resource that we have available and what we're prepared to use in order to create an image. Which reminds me of a really lovely story of my uncle. I had forgotten this. We buried him 10 years ago. He was one of the first cameramen on RTE, the Irish equivalent of BBC.
Okay.
And he was sent off to Africa to film what was going on around the world. So, you know, the Irish, we get out of it, and we did a lot of missionary work for the Catholic Church. And my uncle had gone off to film some of this, so it was sponsored by the missions to enhance, and Ireland is one of the most charitable countries in the world. The idea was you bring it back and you know, generate some emotion and get a couple of quid. But actually, the reason it reminded me of the story, exactly what you're saying, was by the time that he had filmed it, the biggest issue he had, Ireland, of course, being an island, was to get all of the reels, to actually have enough film, to have the ability to carry the film he needed in order to make the series, but then also to value every moment of it, because it was also about getting it back. And actually that was a fundamental block at that time. It was, how much can I carry? And how much have I got to spend on the film? And then is it going to, we still talk about return on investment, but is it going to be something that is informative? Is it going to, because it was the first of its kind? I mean, this would have been in the 60s.
Interesting.
But it was that whole, how do I get it out? How do I protect it in this temperature, and how do I get it back? So thank you for that. And I don't think your word wasn't, I don't think you said you were being mean, you were being tight with it.
Oh, okay, probably,
but you know, we do all need to be very careful about what we're using.
It's true.
And just because it's there, you know, just because AI is there, just because it doesn't necessarily mean it's the way forward, right? Especially if you're creating something and how you want to show it.
Also, it's interesting with the African drums and showing the bias in models to particular kinds of music, you know, and then running that by, you might think, is that kind of African drums? I don't really know. And then take it to someone who knows, and they're going, whoa,
and he just came round to my house and goes, look, he said, I'll do it for nothing. He was a friend, so I said, I'll do it for nothing. He was a very old guy and well in his 80s, and he just came round, started playing his drums, and it was really fascinating. And I thought, oh, it's great, because then you're actually using real stuff in the AI world, you know, so it was really good.
So that sort of critical approach to working, you know, and going, not being necessarily tricked by a novelty of some sound, you know, and knowing your subject. Massively important is to working in any media, you know, so.
I think the trick is to just kind of go for this hybrid look, really, because I just think
you can tell when something is real. I mean, there were certain shots in there you could tell it was AI, which is fine. But if you can kind of mix it in with live action, I think, which I'd like to do now, that would be the next step forward now. Whereas you bring live action with AI, with CGI, and then just mix the whole thing together. It'd be interesting to see what it looks like, really.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
There was one other, I got some notes here. One other thing was the sort of drone movement of cameras, which you see a lot of in the models. So I was trying to get first person view of a rabbit running, darting around.
Okay.
How very difficult that was to do. It was all this smooth kind of stuff through a forest. And then having to use stuff to shake it up. But what comes out of the AI is it's real.
I mean, what I was using for the camera, I was using this add-on called Shakify.
Yeah, right.
So it gives this kind of documentary look. So you can, I just wanted this idea. There's a cameraman, and he's just going around filming everything. So, and so everything was kind of static, and then on top of that, I just used this Shakify.
Yeah.
But I haven't done any drone stuff yet. Maybe I should try.
Or just the output. If you try and do something moving from first person, it's always this output is this like saw.
Okay.
Because so much footage in the model.
Yeah. See you. Take care. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, great.
Cool, yeah.
Super.
Thanks for coming.